Alright, I just traded a running motorcycle for basically a box of parts. This is a 1994 Honda Cr80. I haven't owned a Cr80 in a very, very long time. My brother Charlie used to ride one at the track. Go look way back in the videos and you'll see us racing these things back in the day. They're pretty fast bikes for what they are, but this one's really, really rough. And like I said, basically a box of parts, all torn apart. Plastics are really rough on it. Probably gonna need some new plastics for it. Rear tire, looks like they were doing burnouts. Front tire's brand new, but missing the tube. Frame doesn't look horrible. Seat cover is not the greatest. Gas tank's not too bad. But it came with a Hot Rods rebuild kit. So new rod in here, new crank, new bearings, new gaskets, new seals, Vertex piston. The cylinder looks pretty good, no scratches on the cylinder. So we're hoping we can make this into a running and driving bike today. Obviously it's going to take a ton of work and a ton of time. But I figured the engine running is probably worth $600 to $700, and typically these go for like $1,200 in good running condition. So the bike I traded was probably worth like $500. So we're hoping we can get a good deal and get this thing fixed up. But we've got a lot of work to do. We've got to piece together this engine. It was apart when I bought it, so I have no idea if all the parts are here. But we'll see. This one should be interesting. Alright, looking at the parts, let's check out the pipe here. Oh, the pipe doesn't look that bad. It's really not dented that bad. A little dent right there, but not horrible. Looks like it's still got the silencer with it. Little FMF silencer. Cool. Alright, so we've got the Vertex top end gasket kit there. Here's the piston. Vertex piston. I guess here's what the original problem was. Rod bearing went on it. There's just about a millimeter of up and down play on that thing. What else we got in here? Air filter. Here's the cylinder. We'll take a closer look at that later. But that looks pretty smooth in there. Luckily the top end didn't go. Then we've got the crank seals and bearings. We've got the bearings in the freezer. And here's the new kit. Here's the new crank. Hopefully it matches up with the other one. These kits are like $350 online. Not too expensive. That looks like the same thing, I think. Cool. So that should work. Alright, and then here's the old piston. You can see the damage. Looks like something let loose in the top end and piston was hitting up against the head here. So we'll have to smooth that out. And let's see, crank bearings. Those feel pretty good. Looks like the clutch is still in there, flywheel. Alright, hopefully everything's in here. New top end bearing there. So, let's start piecing this thing together. I hate buying stuff that's already torn apart, but I've done so many of these that it shouldn't be too bad. The crankcase here. We're going to be replacing these bearings. I think it feels too bad in there. Get a little brake cleaner, spray that out. We're looking for any cracks or imperfections in the case half here. Sure it's all good. You can see those flakes from the rod bearing that went. Yeah. So if you see these kind of flakes in your oil, see it's kind of like a coppery looking flake there, most likely your rod bearing is gone. And you need to replace that. Yeah, look at all those chunks in there. So luckily this one was not too bad. Kind of clean everything out. Yeah, I think that failed. So that is the left crank seal. And it looks pretty worn in the middle there. So that could have been running really lean, and maybe that's why the rod bearing went. All right, here's the other case half here. Well, those bearings feel pretty good. You can see all the flakes in there from the rod bearing going. Again, just kind of clean this area out really good with brake cleaner. And then we'll spray it out with compressed air. Then we'll have to lube up everything again. Look at all those. Looks like there's some JB Weld on here. The case here. No cracking. Looks like somebody welded this spot at one point. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. That's going right into the crankcase though. Interesting. Crank seal coming out. Not too bad. All right, we're at the press. Just gonna quick press these bearings out, crank bearings. See if they pop out of here. See if I can catch it. Alright. Yeah, that's toast. Listen to that bearing. There's a lot of slop in there. Good thing we're replacing those. See if we can catch it. Yeah, it doesn't sound the greatest. This one's not as bad as the other one, but still pretty rough. Alright. So you want to look at the surface here. Make sure that looks good. We'll clean that out really nice. But that all looks good. Got the cases cleaned up. Looks really good. No more grime on anything. All the dirt that was in the corners, all cleaned out. Looking really good. So what we used was just a brush with some WD-40 and then some compressed air, just blew through everything. All right, we're gonna heat up the cases here. Put her bearing in. Now we can get those pressed in. Right. You want it nice and flush. Looks good. Check from the back side. Make sure that's all the way down. Yep, perfect. This one pressed in. Ooh, hot. That one went right in. Alright, that bearing pretty much dropped right in. So that one's good to go too. Nice and flush. Alright, crank seals going in. Here they are. So I like to heat up the area where the seal is going to go in just a little bit. A little bit around there. Pushes in fairly easily. And the seal has two sides. One side you can see the spring. There's the flat side where you can't see the spring. The spring's going into the actual crankcase. So spring will be facing down. I'm just gonna push that in. So easy that pushes in, because we were able to heat that up. Just like that. All right, we're at the right-hand side. Let's get this case warmed up a little bit. All right, seal is going this way, so springs pointing down into the crankcase on a two-stroke. Always pointing towards the high pressure side, which would be the crankcase in this scenario. So that pushed in. It's crazy to me that they don't have anything holding this seal in place. You know, some engines have like little lips that come out to hold that seal in, but there's nothing holding that seal in. That's why you see a lot of the Cr80s bog and smoke a lot, because that seal's blown out. Get a little assembly lube on the bearings here. And then with these bearings in here, I like to just use some oil. Just a little bit of oil. All right, we've got the transmission here. We looked at the diagram. All the transmission gears are lined up properly here with all the washers and C-clips. So that all checks out. You can see all the gears look perfect, no missing teeth. And same with here. Everything looks perfect. Have all the washers on there. Here's the shift drum. Also looking good. No wear on that. And then the shift forks. So I'll tell you guys how these go in, but towards the left case half here, you're gonna have one marked L and one marked R here. Where is it? Right there. The R is facing towards the right crankcase cover, and the L is facing down towards the left. Now we're good. So that looks good. We can get this zip tie off of here. Make sure none of the washers fell off down in here. Those look good. Alright, now we can get the shift drum in and the shift forks. So shift drum is going to sit in here like this. And so the L goes in first. So that's going to go way down here. You've got your R going in next. That one's a little easier. And then you've got two different sides. The bigger end goes down. That locks in like that. And then you've got your C going into the middle one here. That rides right there. This one rides right in the middle of the drum. Just like that. This one can go in either way. It's pushed in just like that. Now your transmission should spin smooth now and not bind up at all. If it binds up, you did something wrong. So it shouldn't bind up at all. You can see it's smooth, rotating smoothly. Looks perfect. So that's probably the hardest part of the whole thing, is getting the transmission in all lined up, and it's really not that bad. All right, we've got the new crank. Let's get that going in. All right, so your Woodruff key cutout is going to go towards the left side of the bike. So down. Just checking that rod bearing. That feels good. A little side to side. No up and down. So this can be pushed in just like that. All right, so we're pressing the crank into the bearing here. And what we did was we put the nut on the top of it so it doesn't mess with the threads. So now we can press that in, making sure it goes in straight here. So it gets lined up pretty good. Make sure that rod is up. Bottom's out there. Make sure it spins smooth. Looks perfect. All right, crank is in. Everything looks good there. Gonna spray this off with some brake cleaner. You gotta get these surfaces really clean on both cases here. This one actually has a gasket that goes in between. gasket on. Should go on pretty smooth. All right, engine cases are together. Make sure the crank spins smooth, transmission. That all feels good. We're going to get the bolts in next and bolt that together. And we'll wipe out the excess. Then we'll get these torqued down. All right, case halves are together. We're getting the shift star on here. So there's a little groove right here. It's gonna line up with the little pin on the shift drum. So it's gonna go like, just like that. And then here's the bolt. Put a little Loctite on there. Get that on. That's going to be a 12mm bolt. Alright, crank gear going on here. So this goes down first like that. You've got your smaller one. Doesn't matter which way that one goes. Washer, and then your nut. Got your kickstart gear. It goes like that, no washer behind there. So now we've got to get this plate on to go like that, and this to fall in here. So kind of have to finagle this on. Like that, and then try to get this on while getting that on the shifter. And alright, the shift shaft can go on now. Got the washer. Goes on first. Just gets pushed down onto here. Just like that. And then we can shift through all the gears. Cool. Alright, shifting through all the gears. Looks really good. Alright, clutch going on next. Got your little bushing there that goes on. Got your clutch basket. that. Get your washer. Got your clutch plates and your inner basket going on. These have to line up. That's on. You can see these pull in like that. Now you can get your nut on with the washer. Alright, now the springs can go on. Let's go. Alright, now we can get the clutch cover on. So that's what the cover looks like on the inside. There's the water pump. That goes into the bearing right there. So let's get the gasket on. Just gonna put a little gasket maker around the whole thing. Straight here. Perfect. Get your water pump gasket on. Just put a little bit of gasket maker on there just to hold that in place. And then here's the cover. Get your cover on. Stator going in. You've got your pickup coil here. Alright, flywheels on, washer, nut. Alright, bottom end is done. Let's start working on the top end. We're going to get the reeds out, see what those look like. V-force reeds in there. You just whack that off of there. Try not to rip the gasket. Oh yeah, you can see some of the metal came up on the reeds. See that? Those flakes. Not good. Reeds look great though. Those look brand new. Alright. Manifold. Not ripped at all. We're going to clean all this stuff up in some soapy water. Before we do that, we're going to hone this thing out. You can see no scratches in there at all. Looks really good. So let's get a little oil in there. So a little oil in there. Lube that up. Get that honed out. That's all that needs. Didn't need a whole lot. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, that looks pretty good. You can see the cross hatches now. Perfect. Cylinder in here. Alright, here is the new piston. Vertex piston. That looks good. Let's get our ring out. See what that ring gap looks like. So there is a T on it right there. It's going to be facing up. Oh yeah, ring gap is really nice and tight. You can see right there. We'll quick measure it. Probably 12 thousandths of an inch. Exactly 12 thousandths, so that's going to be perfect. That is going to be awesome. Got our top end bearing. We're going to oil all these up. Get the ring installed. And get this cylinder onto the bottom end. I like to just put a little oil on the bearings here. Alright, but here. On the roller bearing here. And on the piston. Alright, so we're going to get some clean that surface off. Then get our biggest gasket on. Bearing in place, all oiled up, looking good. Arrow is going to point towards the exhaust side of the bike. Let's get that lined up. Alright, cylinder going on. We've got the cylinder lubed up. Make sure the ring is in the correct position. This is like the easiest cylinder install ever. Nice and smooth in there. All right, now the head gasket. And we're going to clean up the head a little bit with our Dremel tool. A little bit. Alright, that's what that head looks like now. All those burrs are off of it. Nice and cleaned up. Arrow points towards the front. Get this thing installed. You've got your acorn nuts. Get those on. And we'll have to look up the torque specs for this. All right, head bolt torque specs, going to be 20 foot-pounds. Alright, engine is finally back together. Looking pretty good. You can see how clean it is. Nice and clean. No dirt anywhere on that thing. So now we can get the bike off the truck and install this engine. See if this thing runs. Alright, we got the frame in here. Looks like there's a little rooster booster on here. Roost boost. That's funny. I wonder what that does. Let me know in the comments if you guys have ever installed one of those on a Cr80. It's kind of funny. But we'll clean up this frame after we get the engine in. It's too hard to clean all this gunk off. It'll take me forever. We'll pressure wash it after. Alright, maybe put the head on wrong, because the only other tube we have is that one. And that looks like it just goes like that. So this might have to turn over here, which is interesting, but this one goes over to here, to the radiator. And that connects like that. So that's correct. So I wonder if I just had that on wrong. Alright, we just got a different hose and connected it like that, because the arrow is right there and the back of it lines up there, so I don't think it's supposed to come out the side like that. So we're putting it like that for now. I think that's the way it's supposed to go. But yeah, it's coming along. The rear brake does work. Front brake works. We've got the clutch hooked up. That's looking good. All right, a couple more things to hook up and we'll give this thing a start. All right, kickstart lever going on. It's got good compression. Wow. Cool, that's working. All right, we got the pipe back on. Let's get that carburetor out and see what that looks like. All right, taking a look at the carb. Right away I see that the O-ring there is messed up. Looks like the air screw's backed out a lot too. Hopefully, all right, let's see. Yeah, it looks pretty clean. That passageway is clear. Got 125 main in there. This is a Keyhin carb. All right, needle looks good. Float looks good. Alright, we're running a 50 for the pilot jet. That seems really big. We're going to look up the specs on this thing. That was clear. Maybe that's why the air screw was turned out so much, allowing more air in. Alright, let's see how many turns. 1, 2, 3, a little bit more than 3.5. So yeah, that was pretty far out. All right, we're gonna blow through that, make sure everything's clean. Choke looks like that's working, you can see it through there. All right, looks like stock pilot is a 50, and stock main is 125. So we are running the stock jets. We're gonna put the air screw to 2 1/4 turns out instead of 3.5. All right, we took off the bottom part of it, and there's actually cracks going through this bolt here. And you can see how big that gasket was on there. It wasn't ever gonna fit. So we have to find a new cap for this. All right, found the new bolt to screw in there. Looks good. That would have been leaking like crazy if we would have kept this one in. I don't know what the heck happened to that one. All right, let's add some oil to it. Looks like it takes 600 milliliters. A little more than half a quart. All right, we're using some 10W40 wet clutch oil. Let's dump that in. Let's get some coolant in here. So far, I think it's holding. Not seeing any leaks. That's topped off. All right, we've got some 40-1 going in. it's leaking out of the tank. Not good. All right, we got the leak fixed. Now we can add some gas. All right, we got the spark plug out. Let's see if this thing has spark. Looks like there's like a new coil on here too. So I'm curious to see what it's gonna do here. All right, I really hope we have spark. Here we go. I don't see anything. Oh, there we go. There's spark. Cool. All right, let's see if we're getting gas flow from the petcock here. Yep, good gas flow. Connect that up, and we should be good to go. All right, at the beginning of the day, this bike was in pieces, completely disassembled, and now we're doing the first start. So let's see if she fires up here. That'd be awesome if it did. Choke it. Sounds so good. Thing is snappy. Holy cow. The idle screw is missing in the carb. We're gonna try to find one of those. All right, could not find the idle screw for it. It takes a really small idle screw. So unfortunately I didn't have one. We're gonna try to make this bike idle by just lifting up the cable. Close enough. Sounds pretty good. Yeah, that bike is going to rip. Really, really responsive. Well, engine sounds really good. I cannot believe it. At the beginning of the video, I was really hesitant to pick this bike up just because it was all in pieces, and I thought for sure we were going to be missing parts, but it turns out all the engine parts were here, and we were able to assemble it in one day and get it running. Obviously it needs a lot more work to be rideable, but we've got both brakes, we have the clutch. All we really need is the front tire tube. We need fork seals. This one's just completely smashed in for some reason. We need a new rear tire. That tread is just gone. We need new sprockets and chain. These are getting down there. And new plastics would be great. New grips were put on, new levers were put on. So those are all done. We don't have the front number plate here. We need to get that as well. But overall, it's not that bad. I thought for sure this bike was just gonna be junk, but it turned out to be a runner. Cannot believe it. So the trade deal, I think, paid off. I think once we get this all cleaned up, the frame all cleaned up, it'll be looking pretty nice. Might get a graphics kit for it, new plastics, new tires. It's gonna be a nice little bike. So hope you guys enjoyed the video on the 1994 Honda Cr80. It was a lot of work getting this thing to run today, but it was definitely worth it. I think we're gonna have a great bike once it's all finished up. So next video, we'll get all the parts for it, put all the parts back on, and we'll take this bike for the first ride. So stay tuned for that, guys. Thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and until next time, we are out.